He finally reaches out. After all the silence, the overthinking, the waiting, you see his name light up your screen. Your heart skips a beat. Part of you wants to believe it means something, that maybe he's finally realized what he lost, but hold on. This is the moment most people make the biggest mistake. You rush to respond. You feel validated, seen, wanted again. But here's what no one tells you. That message isn't the win. It's not a sign he's changed. It's not proof of love. It might just be curiosity, boredom, ego. And if you're not careful, you'll slip right back into the same cycle that broke you. This moment demands more from you. It's not about reacting emotionally. It's about responding powerfully. Can you resist the temptation to reward inconsistency? Can you ask the hard questions without clinging to hope? Because when he reaches out, the true power lies not in his message, but in your response. This is your test, not to see if he wants you, but to see if you still want him. You've grown, you've evolved, and now you get to decide if he still qualifies. Don't make the mistake of calling this a comeback when it could just be a repeat. When he finally reaches out after days, weeks, or maybe even months of silence, the first reaction you might have is this overwhelming surge of validation. That little notification on your phone lights up and suddenly your mind starts racing. He thought of me. He misses me. He came back. And for a split second, everything inside you feels warm again. That old hope you tried to suppress suddenly resurfaces. But here's where the biggest mistake happens, and it's subtle because it doesn't feel like a mistake in the moment. You let your ego take the wheel. See, there's a part of you that doesn't just want love, it wants to win. It wants to believe that you meant something so deeply to someone that even after walking away, they just couldn't stay gone. That part of you clings to the idea that if he came back, you were right all along, that what you felt was real, that he finally realized what he lost. But that narrative, it's not always grounded in truth. Often, it's your ego whispering stories to validate your worth. And the danger is, when ego leads the way, logic and self-respect often get shoved to the back seat. We have to remember something powerful here. Someone reaching out doesn't automatically mean they've changed, or that they're ready, or that they're capable of giving you what you actually need. It just means they're reaching out. That's it. No promise, no commitment, no transformation. Just a message. But your ego, it wants to assign meaning. It wants to believe that effort equals intention, and that intention equals readiness. And that's where we go wrong. You're not alone in this. So many people fall into the same trap. They see that message pop up, and suddenly they forget all the nights they cried themselves to sleep. They forget the unanswered texts, the confusing mixed signals, the emotional whiplash. Why? Because that little ping offers the hope that it wasn't all for nothing, that maybe, just maybe, the story isn't over. And we crave that story. We crave the closure, or the second chance, or the happy ending. But here's the truth. Your value doesn't increase because someone who once walked away now decides to peek back in. Your worth was always there. You just forgot it temporarily while waiting for someone else to see it. The real question isn't why he reached out. It's why you're considering giving your energy to someone who had no problem disappearing. That moment when your ego says, see, I was right to wait. He came back. That's the moment to stop and ask yourself, am I proud of how I waited? Or did I just freeze my own growth, hoping someone else would catch up? If someone ghosted you, ignored you, or strung you along, and then reappears without context, without an apology, without any clear change in behavior, it's not your job to rush into that space like nothing happened. It's your job to protect the peace you've built in their absence. Your ego might want the victory lap, but your soul wants alignment. And that's where your real power lies. People can reappear for all kinds of reasons. Loneliness, boredom, convenience. a moment of nostalgia. Or maybe their life isn't going well and they're craving familiarity. But those reasons don't necessarily mean they're ready to show up for you in the way you deserve. And you have to be honest with yourself, not about what you wish this is, but about what it actually is. It's easy to confuse a comeback with a commitment. But a message at midnight isn't the same as a man who's clear about his intentions. A hey, how have you been, Kai? Doesn't carry the weight of, I made a mistake and I want to make things right. Don't fill in the blanks for someone who's giving you vague crumbs. Don't write the story for him. Let him show up and write it clearly, or not at all. So before you respond, before you allow yourself to get swept away in the fantasy of what this could be, just pause, take a deep breath, tune out the noise, ask yourself, if I took my ego out of the equation, if I wasn't trying to prove I'm the one he should have stayed with, would I still want this? Would I still trust this? And if the answer isn't a full, grounded, and peaceful yes, then maybe the real win isn't replying. Maybe the real win is realizing that you've already outgrown the version of yourself who used to crave this message. Not every reach out deserves a response. And not every return means you're meant to start again. Sometimes the text you ignore is louder than the one you send back. When he finally reaches out, there's often a rush of emotions that flood through you. Excitement, confusion, even a flicker of hope. And I get it. Maybe it's been days, weeks, even months. You waited, you wondered, you went back and forth in your head 1,000 times, and now here he is, showing up on your phone like nothing happened. Just a hey or a how have you been? And in that moment, your heart starts to race, not necessarily because you're still deeply attached, but because your emotions get hijacked by the moment you've been mentally rehearsing for far too long. But here's the thing I want you to understand. How you respond in this moment matters far more than the fact that he reached out. Because the biggest mistake people make is letting their emotions lead the way. When we operate from emotion alone, especially unprocessed emotion, we tend to act in ways that don't actually serve us. You might feel like texting back immediately, maybe even enthusiastically, hoping this is the beginning of something real again. But the truth is, those first few moments, your tone, your energy, your response, they send a message. And it's not just to him, it's to you. What do you want your response to communicate? Do you want it to say, I've just been sitting here waiting for your return? Or do you want it to say, I've been moving forward with or without you? Because that second message doesn't come from silence or indifference. It comes from grounded self-worth. And that's the energy you want to bring into this moment. Responding from a place of power doesn't mean playing hard to get. It's not about being cold or distant or pretending you don't care. It means giving yourself the space to check in with your values before you check back in with him. You're not reacting, you're responding. There's a difference. Reacting is impulsive, responding is intentional. One is about craving a feeling, the other is about honoring your standards. Think about it. If someone disappeared, ghosted you, pulled back with no explanation, and then reappeared like nothing happened, that tells you something. Not just about their inconsistency, but about how they handle emotional responsibility. So when you feel that urge to respond quickly, to seize the moment, in fear that it'll disappear again, ask yourself, what am I really chasing right now? Is it connection or is it closure? Is it love or is it a sense of being chosen again? Because here's what I know. Someone reaching out doesn't automatically mean they've changed. It doesn't mean they're ready, and it certainly doesn't mean you owe them access to you. Sometimes people reach out because they're lonely. Sometimes they miss the idea of you, not the actual relationship they failed to nurture. Sometimes they're just checking if the door is still open. So your job is not to make that easy for them. Your job is to make sure that the door they once walked out of now has a stronger lock. one that only opens for consistency, clarity, and care. When you respond from emotion, you risk handing over all your power. You risk validating a behavior that left you confused or hurt in the first place. You risk telling someone, it's okay to treat me this way. I'll still be here. But when you respond from strength, you're not cold, you're clear. You're not playing a game, you're protecting your peace. You can say something kind, you can acknowledge the message, but you don't have to jump in emotionally. You don't have to go backwards in time and pretend like nothing happened. You can take your time. You can be curious, but guarded. You can ask questions. And most importantly, you can check in with yourself and say, does this actually align with the love I want in my life? Because love, real love, doesn't just knock on your door. It builds the door with you. It shows up when it says it will. It follows through. So when someone reappears, the question isn't, what do I say to him? The question is, what version of me is showing up now? And if you've grown, if you've healed, then your response needs to reflect that growth. This is your moment to show yourself that you've outgrown the need for temporary highs. You're no longer a participant in emotional ping pong. You are someone who chooses peace over potential, clarity over chaos, and self-respect over empty words. Because the real power isn't in whether or not he comes back. It's in whether or not you still let him in when someone disappears and then suddenly reappears in your life. There's a part of you that wants to believe this is the moment everything turns around. Maybe you've been waiting, maybe you've been trying to move on, but the second you see their name pop up on your phone, there's a jolt, a rush of emotions, a flicker of hope. And in that flicker, in that tiny emotional window, it's so easy to fall into the trap of seeing this as some kind of breakthrough, as if this message, this sudden interest, is evidence of something deeper. But I want to warn you, that's where most people make the mistake of rewarding inconsistency. Here's the truth. Someone who left you in a place of confusion, someone who backed away when things got real or disappeared when you were vulnerable, that person doesn't automatically earn access to your life again just because they decided they're ready now. It's not about punishing them. It's about recognizing patterns. Because when someone has shown you they can be inconsistent, what matters most isn't that they came back. It's what they do consistently now that they've returned. Think of it like this. Imagine you hired someone to do an important job. They start strong, show up on time, say all the right things. Then, one day, they just stop showing up. No warning, no explanation. And weeks later, they walk back in and say, hey, I'd love to get back to work. You wouldn't just hand them the keys again, right? You'd want to know what happened. You'd want to see if anything has changed. And most importantly, you'd want to see a track record before you trusted them again. The same logic applies in dating. But here's where it gets tricky, because you're not dealing with an employee. You're dealing with someone you had an emotional connection with. And emotional connections don't play by rational rules. Your heart doesn't always wait for consistency. It remembers the late night talks, the laughter, the moments when it felt like it meant something. And when that person comes back, even with the smallest gesture, those memories flare up. And suddenly, your standards soften. You start justifying their absence. You tell yourself, well, maybe they were scared. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe now they've realized how much they miss me. Maybe. But also, maybe not. Maybe what's really happening is that they felt lonely. Maybe someone else they were dating didn't work out. Maybe they're just reaching out to see if you're still an option. You can't know until you see their actions over time. That's the key. Not their words, not their promises, but what they actually do. Do they show up consistently? Do they make an effort to repair the break? Do they acknowledge the distance they created? Or do they pretend like nothing happened and expect to pick up where things left off? When someone reaches out after disappearing, they're not giving you a gift. They're asking a question. Is there still space for me in your life? And your answer should come from your standards, not your loneliness, not your nostalgia, because people who truly want to be in your life will show it with effort, not just with an occasional message. They'll show it by being reliable, emotionally present, and transparent about their intentions. And if someone can't give you that, if they drift in and out, showing up when it's convenient or when they need attention, then responding with warmth, attention, or hope only teaches them that they don't have to be consistent to access you. That's how we unintentionally train people to treat us. We think we're being kind, we think we're being understanding, but what we're actually doing is showing them that even if they disappear for weeks or months, we'll still be here, ready and waiting. That's not connection. That's availability without boundaries. And availability without boundaries gets mistaken for permission. So, the next time someone who's been inconsistent reaches out, ask yourself, am I rewarding a pattern that hasn't served me? Or am I holding space for the kind of behavior I actually want and deserve? Don't let momentary attention distract you from long-term inconsistency. Don't let "one I miss you" override months of silence. You are not just someone's option, you are someone's dream. And if they can't see that, then they don't get to be part of the story you're writing now. Let people earn their way back into your life, not with charm, but with consistency. You teach people how to treat you, not just with what you say, but with what you allow. And when he finally reaches out after days, weeks, or even months of silence, your response becomes a signal. It tells him what's okay and what's not. So many people make the mistake of responding as if nothing ever happened, jumping back in, replying instantly, acting like they've been waiting by the phone this whole time. But when you do that, you're not reconnecting, you're reinforcing a pattern. You're showing him that access to you doesn't require effort, consistency, or clarity. Just a simple, hey. And look, I get it. That message hits your phone. And suddenly there's this rush, a little thrill. You feel seen again. Maybe you've been wondering if he'd ever reach out, and now, as he has, that small notification pulls up big emotions. But here's the thing, your feelings are valid, but they're not instructions. Just because you feel excited or relieved doesn't mean you owe him immediate access to your energy, your time, your heart. The way you respond, your tone, your pace, even the space you take before replying. All of that matters. That's where your power lives. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to play games. But you do need to be intentional. Think of it this way. Are you responding because it aligns with your standards, or are you responding because your emotions got triggered? When you get a text like, "Hey stranger," or "I was just thinking about you," after silence, don't read it like poetry. Read it like data. What is this really? Is it genuine curiosity, or is it someone testing the waters, seeing if the door is still open? Because someone who values you doesn't reach out just to see if you'll bite. They come with intention, they come with clarity. And if they don't, you get to set the standard through how you respond. Maybe you do choose to reply. That's fine, but let your tone be calm, grounded, and warm without being too available. You're not being rude by not pouring your heart out in the first message. You're not being distant by taking time to reply. You're being discerning. And that's attractive, that's powerful. Here's what often happens. People think that if they're too direct or too honest in the beginning, they'll scare someone away. But the truth is, the wrong person gets scared off by your standards. The right one steps up. If you act like you've been waiting on him, He'll think you were, and then he doesn't have to do anything different. He knows all he has to do is send a few vague texts now and then, and you'll come running. But if he reaches out and your energy says, hey, I'm good, and I'm not picking up where we left off, unless something's different, that shifts everything. You're communicating that time passed, things changed, and you're not someone he can hit pause on and expect to press play whenever he wants. You're not punishing him, you're just not pretending. There's a difference between giving someone another chance and giving them the same access they once abused. And if he's serious about reconnecting, he'll rise to meet you there. He'll sense that you're not playing hard to get, you're just not easy to get anymore. Not because you're difficult, but because you now hold yourself to a higher standard. That's where real self-worth shows up. Not in how you feel when someone texts you, but in how you respond when they do. Your tone should reflect someone who has a full life, someone who isn't desperate for attention, but open to connection. If it's meaningful, if it's healthy, if it feels different this time. This doesn't mean you have to craft some perfect response or analyze every word. Just stay rooted, breathe, ask yourself, if I loved myself deeply, how would I reply to this? And more importantly, what would I need to see from him to even consider re-engaging? If the answer is more effort, more clarity, more consistency, then don't settle for a lazy opener. Let your tone be the standard. Let it invite something better or nothing at all. Because the moment you shift from trying to win him back to trying to protect your peace, everything changes. And he'll feel that. Whether he can match it is his journey, but maintaining it, that's yours. Let your tone remind him that your presence is a privilege, not a promise. You know what happens when someone finally reaches out after they've been distant, silent, or just straight up vanished for a while? As a swirl of emotions, relief, confusion, excitement, maybe even a little anxiety. And often, the first instinct is to grab on tight, to rush back in, to fix things, to make sense of it all by going right back to how it used to be. But that's the mistake. Letting that momentary contact overwrite all the clarity you may have gained in their absence. When someone reappears, it's easy to assume it means something big. He must have realized I'm the one. He must have missed me so much he couldn't stay away. Maybe this means we have a second chance. But those thoughts, those assumptions, they're built on hope, not evidence. And hope, without truth to back it up, can be dangerous. So instead of diving headfirst into fantasy, what if, just for a moment, you let yourself get curious instead. I don't mean curious like, I wonder if he still loves me. I mean real curiosity, grounded curiosity. The kind that says, what changed? Why now? What is he actually saying? And more importantly, what is he actually doing? Because people don't always reach out for the reasons you want them to. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's just comfort, a familiar face in a lonely moment. And if you don't ask questions, if you don't slow down enough to explore what's underneath the message, you risk projecting your own hopes onto a situation that hasn't earned them. So be curious, not clingy. And yes, there's a difference. Clingy energy says, thank God you messaged. I've been waiting. Let's fix this. Let's get back. I knew you'd come around. Curious energy says, hey, it's been a while. What made you reach out? Clingy energy overcompensates, gives too much, forgives too fast. Curious energy holds space, listens, observes. It doesn't jump to conclusions, it gathers data. When someone who ghosted you or withdrew emotionally suddenly reappears, your job isn't to make it easy for them to slide back in. Your job is to pay attention. Are they showing up with real intention? Or are they dipping their toe in to see if the door is still open? Ask the questions, not just out loud, but inside yourself. Is this message about me or is it about them? Do I feel respected right now? Does this person even acknowledge the silence, or are they pretending it never happened? Because if they come back with no explanation, no accountability, no sense of self-awareness, then you already have your answer. And if you respond with instant warmth and no boundaries, you teach them that they can disappear and reappear at will, and you'll still be there waiting. Being curious allows you to stay in your power. It keeps your standards intact. It reminds you that just because someone wants access to you doesn't mean they deserve it. And when you show that curiosity, when you calmly ask what changed, what they're looking for now, or what their intentions are, you shift the dynamic. You're not chasing, you're not begging, you're evaluating. You're interviewing someone for a role in your life, and they don't automatically get hired just because they showed up late to the interview. This doesn't mean you're cold. This doesn't mean you're guarded. It means you're grounded. You're centered in self-respect. And when you approach the conversation that way, you'll see things much more clearly. Because if someone is reaching out from a genuine place, they'll appreciate that you're asking those questions. They'll meet you with clarity. They'll bring vulnerability. They'll reference the past, acknowledge it, and show you how they've changed. But if someone's just reaching out because they're lonely or curious or want the ego boost of knowing you still care, they'll get uncomfortable with your curiosity. They'll try to avoid specifics. They'll get defensive. They might even back off completely. That's not a loss. That's a gift, because now you know. You're not here to convince someone of your worth. You're here to connect with someone who already sees it. So when someone reaches out, don't panic, don't chase, and don't assume it's destiny. Just breathe and get curious. Let them reveal who they are, not just that they reached out. The simple act of them reaching out means something significant, that it's a sign, that it means everything you felt before was valid, justified, or reciprocated. But here's the truth. Just because someone contacts you again doesn't mean you've won. It doesn't mean they've changed. It doesn't even mean they're ready. What it often means is they're curious, they're lonely, they're bored. They're wondering if the door is still open. That's not love. That's checking the lock. We can get so wrapped up in the excitement of the moment that we forget to ask the right questions. We forget to hold on to our power. It's like someone drops a breadcrumb and we forget how hungry we were for the full meal. You spent weeks, maybe months, working to move forward, to rebuild your confidence. You cried, you doubted yourself, you wrestled with all the what ifs and the why nots. And now, just because one little message lands in your inbox, it all comes flooding back. You're willing to toss away your growth for one moment of validation? That's the real mistake. Not that he reached out, not that you responded, but that you forget the value of everything you've learned in his absence. You forget to ask, do I even want this anymore? See, when someone comes back, you have a choice. Most people don't see it that way. They think, he's back, now I can finally have what I wanted. But the true power lies in realizing that now you get to choose if he even qualifies. You're not the same person who once waited for that message. You've evolved. You've gained clarity, standards, and hopefully some self-respect. So the question isn't, why did he come back? The real question is, does he now align with the life I'm building? When someone walks away or creates distance, they've shown you something about their emotional availability, their courage, their communication, and their respect for what the two of you had. You don't just forget all of that because they circle back. You don't erase the past because a new message appears. You don't lower your standards in the hope that maybe this time it'll be different. People don't change without intention. They don't become reliable without work. They don't magically transform because they missed you on a quiet Thursday night. So often, we get so excited they returned, we forget to ask if we still want what we once did. That version of you, the one who longed for him, isn't the one standing here now. That version might have accepted less, tolerated uncertainty, made excuses for absence. But the new you, the you who's been growing, healing, evolving, she doesn't just pick up where things left off. She asks the hard questions. She observes. She listens, not just to what's being said, but to what's being done. The greatest mistake is handing someone the same access to you just because they knocked on the door again. Access to you should be earned, not through empty words or late-night messages, but through actions that prove growth, consistency, and care. You're not a trophy waiting on a shelf. You're not a comfort zone. You're a whole person who deserves presence, clarity, and respect. The real test isn't whether he reaches out. It's whether he shows up differently. It's whether you can trust yourself to see clearly this time. It's whether you can hold space for your standards even when your heart wants to believe the fairy tale. That's strength. That's growth. And that's where real transformation happens, not in his return, but in your response. So don't let the message be the moment. Let your boundaries be the moment. Let your confidence, your discernment, your ability to walk away if nothing's changed. That's the moment. That's the victory. Because the win isn't that he came back. The win is that you're no longer waiting